Hello, and welcome to the 8th JCLP President's Forum. I'm Gail Severance in Jefferson City, Missouri, and I've been president of Temple Bethel for the past 11 years. I've lasted that long only because the JCLP helped re-energize our synagogue with some excellent programming ideas. But that energy dissipates over time, and burnout is a looming problem. I don't have to tell you, burnout will demoralize even the most committed leaders. That's why it's been studied by the National Institutes of Health, the Mayo Clinic, the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the Harvard Business Review. Tonight, the 4 stories you'll hear are from the front lines, and they are brutally honest. They're about spotting the warning signs, managing the frustration, and knowing when to say enough is enough. Please feel free to post comments in the chat. After the presentations, we'll want to hear your experiences and we'll take your questions. Let's get started.
There are 3 things that creep up on you until you don't recognize yourself: your weight, your wrinkles, and your responsibilities in a small Jewish congregation. And regardless which one it is, you ask the same question: how did this happen to me? My name is Terry Reitzel, and I'm a member of Agudas Achim Beth Israel Synagogue in Belleville, Illinois. I became so burned out as a synagogue leader, I didn't recognize myself. To explain how it happened, I'll tell you the unvarnished story of my time on the board and my eventual liberation. I should say up front, my fellow congregants are fantastic, truly the heart and soul of our little synagogue. We have wonderful traditions. At major holiday meals, the women sneak off to the kitchen, pull a bottle of vodka out of the freezer, and throw down shots. Belleville is in southwestern Illinois. It's about 20 miles east of St. Louis and home to Scott Air Force Base. That's where I worked as a military doctor until I retired. I joined Agudas Achim Beth Israel in 2004. The congregation, lay-led, was struggling even then. But with Olivia, my adopted daughter from China, I wanted a community. To do my share, I joined the board as secretary. The first lesson I learned was about the leadership continuum. Even though I was a lieutenant colonel, I'm too introverted to seek out leadership roles. But I'm not a follower either. I'm probably a doer. I'm a really good make-doer. I make do with what I have. On getting things done over the course of 20 years on the board, I inherited more and more responsibility. Eventually, I was board president in every way but the title. I learned early on, enthusiasm only goes so far. I was optimistic when I first joined the board. The whole board was. We tried to attract new members and get inactive members to participate. We hired a part-time rabbi, hosted guest speakers, screened movies, and played trivia. I oversaw a major building upgrade that added a chairlift and ramp to make us accessible. Our strategy was build it and they will come. But they didn't come. The board realized our members accepted the status quo. They weren't interested in doing more. They came to high holidays and the second night Seder, but rarely to Shabbat services. As for the congregational meetings, we stopped having them and elections because nobody showed up. The board stayed on and hunkered down to take care of the basics. Eventually came a sobering lesson. Life happens. The board member who oversaw our building and cemetery developed cancer. His illness made everyone on the board realize we wouldn't be able to do this forever. And though he survived, I helped shoulder his responsibilities. I was the only one in a position to step up because I was retired and had the time, was able-bodied, and had helped him before he got sick. Over time, I came to appreciate the ancient Greek maxim, know yourself. I wish I had embraced it sooner. You see, my instinct is to take care of others first. So I take care of the job, the kids, the pets, the organization. Only after I've completed the mission, I take care of myself. And that's the wrong order. It should be like the oxygen mask on the airplane. You take care of yourself first, so you're able to help others. Instead, I learned to sublimate my negative emotions. I resented feeling I had to open and close the building every Shabbat because no one else would commit to a schedule. And although I liked the board members, I hated board meetings. I was pissed off before I even got there and irritable the whole time, waiting for the next task to drop. A friend of mine said, "Terry, you need to quit." And I said, "Yeah, well, nobody else is there to do it." So I learned about martyrdom. With every project, it's going to crash and burn if I don't take care of it. But you know, if it had crashed and burned, people would have managed. I know now, I didn't have to be a martyr. Working with JCLP, I've learned what triggers a synagogue's demise. In our case, it will be a lack of leaders. I had stepped down from being secretary, but my successor developed vision problems and asked me to serve again, and I said yes, reluctantly. We had twisted somebody's arm to be president, but he stopped coming to meetings. And the vice president wouldn't take over. So essentially, I did to keep things going. I was determined to make sure the cemetery would be taken care of if we closed our doors. So I did all the legwork to complete that last piece of our legacy project. The final blow to the board was the resignation of our 80-year-old, partially deaf treasurer. A year ago at a board meeting, he basically said, "I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore." And I thought, he gets to punch out, and I get to pick up more slack and feel even more overwhelmed. No, I can't do this anymore. I'll feel guilty, but I'll get over it. I blurted out that I too was resigning from the board. That was the trigger. We were at the point where none of the 8 board members wanted to be an officer. The board voted that day to shut down. We announced what we thought would be the final congregational meeting and a last-ditch attempt at elections. If the officer positions are not filled, we said, the board sees no other choice than to close the synagogue and dissolve. Guess what? Everybody showed up. The board was expecting tears or maybe protests. Instead, we were surprised when 4 congregants heroically said they would lead the board. But it's not sustainable, and we all know it. When the time comes, people can go to St. Louis. It is more than a dozen synagogues. It's less than an hour's drive, or they can connect on Zoom. For me, life is better these days. I feel liberated, and I'm taking care of myself, which feels great. I practice Qigong, a Chinese martial art that coordinates movement, breathing, and meditation. I also manage 9 acres of forest, meadow, lake, and gardens. I'm creating a pollinator habitat to serve the bees and feed my family. I go to services now because I want to, not because I feel I have to. And I'm rooting for the new leaders who filled the vacuum. But are the boundaries I've set perfect? Judaism teaches that each member of the community is responsible not only for themselves, but also for their fellow Jews. Striking that balance is the challenge. If sharing my experience helps you, I'll do my best to answer your questions.
Hello, I'm Paul Tevero. I'm once again president of the United Hebrew Congregation in Joplin, Missouri. Joplin, as the saying goes, has been good for the Jews. On Main Street, German Jewish immigrants built Newman's department store in 1910. The local newspaper called it a palatial home of merchandising. The following year, Joplin's growing Jewish community founded the United Hebrew Congregation. In a few years, they built a magnificent synagogue for $35,000. But times change. Newman's eventually filed for bankruptcy. The building is now Joplin City Hall, and the United Hebrew Congregation is down to about 25 households, most of them in their 70s and 80s. I moved to Joplin in 1982 as a history professor at Missouri Southern State College. I was persuaded to teach in the religious school, then to join the board as secretary, and eventually to serve as president. In many synagogues, being president can feel like a life sentence. You take the job, and you're stuck without a successor. It's not that way at United Hebrew, because we have term limits. For at least 50 years, our governing documents have restricted how many consecutive terms a president can serve. And in my experience, term limits help prevent burnout. My first term as president was brutal. 41 years old, I had to contend with longtime board members from prominent families. They thought I should handle the grunt work while they called the shots. On the other hand, I also learned why before trying some of my bright ideas, I needed to pay more careful attention to their recommendations based on decades of experience. And nothing prepared me to organize high holiday services. That was all on-the-job training or maybe trial by fire. There was no written plan from past years. I was told that everyone knew how we'd always done it. Well, maybe everyone else did, but I had to figure out a lot of things for myself. We now have written plans for high holiday services. After that first round of high holiday services, I wasn't sure I wanted to be president anymore. I wasn't sure I even wanted to be part of the congregation. But I made it through my first term, then a second. After that, with the limit on successive terms, someone else had to take over. I went back to being secretary. That gave me enough respite that I was willing to step back up when one of my successors as president had to step down. For the last 35 years, I've alternated between president, vice president, and secretary. There's a group of us that rotate through the jobs so that everyone gets a breather. Generations ago, when Joplin had more young people and Jewish professionals, there was a larger pool of candidates. These days, because our membership is so small, only a few of us have the skills and motivation to be president. You certainly want someone with a basic knowledge of Judaism, but if the people skills are lacking, they're not going to be effective. So with our limited roster of leaders, I can tell you how I've managed the challenges, lessons I sometimes learn by trial and error. Keep your board meetings to 90 minutes with a written agenda. You don't want to cut off discussion, but if people get fidgety, they will be less willing to stay on the board. Listen to the other board members. Listen closely and be willing to say, oh, there's more to the problem than I had thought. Or, your proposal has more advantages and fewer drawbacks than what I had in mind. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. Some of your board members or other congregants may have expertise in finance or event planning or building issues, or may know firsthand the practical problems involved in implementing what may seem to be a brilliant plan. When we had trouble getting insurance, JCLP connected us to a group purchasing organization. Attend services to lead by example. We've had a couple of presidents who are good managers, but you almost never saw them at services. We want congregants to be involved, but that's a hard sell if you're not doing it yourself. I know you don't want me to sugarcoat anything, so let's all acknowledge that at some point you may burn out and not have a successor. For now, JCLP helps us manage our planning issues. Someday the congregation will have to create a legacy plan. It will be an emotionally draining experience. But for fragile congregations, a legacy plan may be the only option, and perhaps one of your most important achievements as a leader.
Hello, I'm Jackie Gish in Glendale, California, a suburb of Los Angeles. I am the founder and co-president of Congregation Hugat Havarim. Our membership is shrinking. We have 22 households and all the problems of a small, aging congregation.
I'm Jose Grijalba, the other co-president. Jackie and I are a good team. We brainstorm and split the work. Hugat Havirim means circle of friends. And for me, it really is. My father was from El Salvador. My mother, from Russia, was Jewish. When I discovered Hugat Havirim in 2005, I was embraced. I don't feel different, I feel valued. So my work on the board is a labor of love.
Until 1999, I had been a lifelong member of a well-established synagogue. We had a building, a religious school, and a rabbi and cantor. But in 1999, the board did not renew the cantor's contract, triggering an exodus. Cantor Block had been there 33 years, a vital part of many lives. But the rabbi at the time didn't want him, and the board went along. Heartbroken, a bunch of us left. We got together for Hanukkah that year with the cantor. Hanukkah, as you know, means dedication, and we were dedicated, enough to form a new congregation, starting at square one, with nothing but our determination. We had monthly Shabbat services with photocopied prayer books, then high holidays, and eventually Passover. As the one who organized the gatherings, I was the logical choice for president. We adopted Cantor Block. I say adopted because in the beginning, we didn't really hire him. We passed the hat. After obtaining nonprofit status, we formalized his role with a modest part-time salary. Cantor Block led services along with lay people. In 2001, Hugat Havarim officially joined the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, now known as the Union for Reform Judaism. Our house became Synagogue Central. There's enough room for our Torah and Ark, which one of our members built. The Eternal Light is on a side table, and we rearrange the furniture when we get together.
Some of us are very spiritual. Some of us are more culturally Jewish. But all of us thrive on being together and being Jewish together.
I've been on the board for all but one of our 25 years, often as president or co-president. And today I'm close to burning out, as are many of my fellow board members.
We've been struggling the last 3 or 4 years. We have a few younger board members who bring some adrenaline, but others are complacent.
I'm generally not one to give up. I knew what I was getting into because at my previous synagogue, I had been a vice president. And professionally, I was a project manager at an aerospace company. So I know how to run a meeting. I'm accustomed to public speaking, and I'm conscientious about to-do lists.
With volunteer work, the more institutional knowledge you have, and the more problems you solve, the more everyone else depends on you.
There's less urgency to pitch in because they figure someone else is handling it. The lesson I learned is try not to take it personally when people don't step up.
And when you're frustrated, speak up. Share the load with fellow board members so you don't stew in resentment.
Congregation Who Got Havarim is now at a crossroads. Cantor Block, who was central to our founding, is 84 years old. His health is failing, and he is not as capable as he once was.
6 years ago, we hired a student rabbi to help. When he graduated and moved on, we hired a part-time ordained rabbi. Paying for 2 clergy is a challenge.
When it feels overwhelming, I try to relax and recharge. Easier said than done. I am able to lose myself in the music and take in the rabbi's sermons. But I have to be realistic about our future. We're losing members to old age, and we could run out of money. When we laid it on the line at a recent congregational meeting, just about everyone said how important the congregation was to them. They committed to doing more, a rededication that reminds me of our first Hanukkah together.
I feel a sense of dread over what would happen if the congregation falters. These are some of my closest friends.
I think we've got one more year, maybe a little more. After that, we might have to downsize into a lay-led Havurah. One way or the other, I'm proud of what we've built, and I hope our group remains, in whatever form, Who Got Havarim, a circle of friends. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Eileen Litchfield from Congregation Anshe Emeth in Piqua, Ohio, about 30 miles north of Dayton. Our temple was founded in the 1850s with about 24 members, and 167 years later, we're back where we started, about 20 household units. We're super small. I'm a transplant to Southwest Ohio from New York State, and I joined Anshe Emeth about 40 years ago with 2 young children and a supportive non-Jewish husband. The members then, as now, are warm and welcoming and became my extended Jewish family in rural Ohio. Before long, I became board president because the job needed to be done, I had the time, and I was and am passionate about the congregation. From other volunteer work, I understood the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Fortunately, I got enough help and did not burn out. So maybe my experience can help you. Certainly, the first lesson is delegate. There's no way to do it all. As president, I oversaw whatever needed to be done, especially with programming and people. To look after the building and cemetery, we have a married couple, longtime members I call the dynamic duo, and my vice president, he's president now, help with advice as a sounding board. Of course, we're always recruiting volunteers, and I found that phone calls got results. One-on-one calls take a lot more time than a group email, but they're harder to ignore, and they remind people about your commitment. It makes it more personal. But be prepared to compromise, even though you want things done to a high standard. At Oneg Shabbats, I prefer homemade challahs to store-bought. To me, homemade feels better, probably because I use my grandmother's recipe. We called hers Nana rolls, and now that I'm a Nana, my grands call them Nana rolls. But when somebody brings a store-bought challah, I focus on the big picture. They're participating, and that's a good thing. As you know, some people complain no matter how much you compromise, and the best thing you can do is listen to them. If you come across as I'm the boss and we do it my way, then pushback will burn you out. People want to be heard. To vent frustrations, I commiserate with other board members and collaborate with other synagogue presidents through JCLP. On programming we can't do ourselves. Our group is called the Ohio Small Congregations Cohort, and we have 14 members. Supporting each other helps prevent burnout. With fundraising, the never-ending challenge, JCLP urged us to solicit former members. children whose parents have passed but may have been involved. Even if the next generation long ago moved away, they often donate when there's a yard site or when we mail our annual appeal. Our board has learned to think small. We're realistic about what we can do. Shabbat services are once a month. That's all we can afford. And any more than that, I think I may have burned out. With monthly services, people really want to be there to see each other. As a synagogue leader, I embrace our diverse demographics. Anshe Emet has non-Jewish spouses. Some of our members have converted. Some are there just to learn about Judaism, and a few are Noahides. If you're not familiar with this religious movement, and I wasn't, Noahides are non-Jews who follow the 7 moral laws for Noah's descendants. They are universal laws derived from the Torah. The Noahides follow practices of more traditional Judaism. Anshe Emet needs and welcomes everyone. Just like all congregations, we need bodies in the pews. As president, I tried to focus on the most gratifying parts of the job, mostly keeping the congregation going. I relish thank yous from appreciative congregants, and when problems seem overwhelming, my mantra is, "This too shall pass." That's what's kept me from burning out, and that's my wish for you. I'll look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, all 4 of you. I think if there was one theme, it's for each of the presidents, and it's not just the 4 that presented, but I'm sure everybody on this Zoom, is balancing a passion for your synagogue with dealing with the weight of responsibilities of leadership, and how you're able to do that balance, and for how long are you able to do the balance. So I encourage you to unmute yourself and identify, give your name and identify your community, and ask a question. And don't be, well, you're presidents. Nobody's shy if you're president. So you don't have to be shy for the Zoom tonight. Anybody have any comments? Or if any of the 4 presenters have anything that you want to say as a postscript to your presentation, you're welcome to do that too.
Hi, I'm Johanna Schaefer from Temple B'nai Shalom here in New Bern, North Carolina. I'm not a president. I wanted to come to this because I am burning out. And, we learn from each other. And we are a very small congregation. We too were formed in 1868. Jews started to come to New Bern in the 1700s. And they built a beautiful synagogue by buying the land and building the building. Our challenges are many. One of them, obviously, is building our membership. We now have, believe it or not, individuals outnumber families. I think that's just because of where we are. I am the secretary of the board. I've been serving for 5 years. I will continue to do that. We are in a very challenging time, as I said. Hardly anybody's stepping up. Our congregation is aging, and we have very few young people. They're very busy with families and can't commit, but we hope in the future that they will. But I just wanted to introduce myself.
Hi, I'm Emily Burt Hedrick. I'm with Congregation Beth Tikva in Carlisle, and it's been
Pennsylvania.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate hearing all of these stories because, gee, it just sounds like our congregation. And I didn't realize that we are not so unique. Our congregation was started in the 1960s by a bunch of Jewish businessmen in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And I think we have formally incorporated probably in the early 70s, but we have never had a building, and we've on rare occasions hired a rabbi. It's been mostly lay-led the entire time. And I'm kind of surprised we're still going, but I think we have the same problem. We're all the people who have been doing all the work, and that includes me. I mean, we had a long tradition of being president for life, and people would burn out very quickly. I went through that, and I'm afraid the only excuse I got to get out of being president was the fact that my husband passed away, and it was more than I could cope with. So we finally got somebody else to take over. And I think she's much younger than I, but I think she's burning out too. Um, and all the other people who have been involved for years and years and years and years and years. And from time to time we have young families coming in, and they said we have a Sunday school, and it's we meet at Dickinson College. We hire Dickinson students to run our Sunday school, and that seems to be working very well. But I don't know how long we're going to hold on to any of these young families. And I think we've got 25 families, give or take. And one of our big concerns is we've been working with NOAA for a while, and with the Jewish Community Foundation in Harrisburg about this kind of legacy planning, thinking about issues of what do we do with our cemetery, which we do have a cemetery, we have a Torah. What do we do with that if we, stop meeting? We are able to do probably one Zoom service and mostly one in-person service every month. And we actually do better with our Zoom services because people from all over who have been associated with the congregation for years are able to call in and be part of it from all over the United States, we appreciate that very much. But we have a lot of trouble getting people to come now to our in-person services. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that's where we are. And I appreciate hearing everyone else's stories, because it's nice to know we're not the only one in this position. But, I think our entire board is burning out, and we're just having a lot of trouble getting any enthusiasm for anything, and being able to get more people to step up and do things. So that's it.
Naomi.
I am Naomi McCormick of Sons of Jacob Synagogue in Waterloo, Iowa. I'm also seemingly the permanent chair of long range planning. And I really resonate with the stories, and I think it was a lot of courage in sharing the unvarnished truth about what our experiences are. And it's a real struggle. Tomorrow, I'm going to have coffee with my president and have an honest talk about what I can no longer do, because it's affected the quality of my life. And I think one has to be clear, and you would think I would know better because I'm a clinical psychologist by training, but that doesn't mean I follow the things I taught other people. And I think if you have a sense of responsibility and you're sympathetic and aware of the limitations other people might have, you can take on more than you want to. And I've watched other people who were doing as much as I kind of vanish from the scene. And I'm worried about the future. We've done a lot of remarkable things. We sold our building, and we have a rental space, and we've preserved the environment as much as possible. We actually have 2 visiting rabbis, one from Chicago and one from Iowa City. We only have services 1 weekend a month, other than holidays. But we've tried a lot. But you have to be realistic about what you can do and what you can't do, particularly with an aging congregation like many of us have, where people don't have the ability anymore to pitch in like they used to. So I really appreciate the honesty of what people shared. I think we all think Jewish life is precious, and we're here to try to preserve that for our communities. We are fortunate in having some people come from 1 or 2 hours away to our services or to support us. And sometimes other people who live a block away don't come. So it's a really difficult thing. We all know the clock is ticking on us if we have a small congregation. We have been here for 120 years, and we know it's not going to be another 120 years. So I thank everyone for the courage and what you shared and the inspiration that you provided me, and I'm sure other people here.
Thank you, Naomi. Ann.
Okay, I'm Ann Berman with Congregation Ahavas Israel in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Entering my 4th year as president, I found the first year a struggle because the continuity of expectations wasn't there. So over the course of the last 3 years, also let me backtrack. When I started, I only worked part-time, but now I'm a full-time employee, and through that I became a guardian of a family member who has since passed. And so I had a lot on my plate and still tried to be the best I can. That said, what I have been doing is asking each position, whether it's our office manager or our treasurer, to actually create a list of how to do the job. So God forbid he doesn't show up on Monday, you can grab that binder and see what they're doing. This is the procedure for X, Y, and Z. I'm asking our cemetery committee to create, I'm asking all committees to do that, because I think part of the that was overwhelming for me was not totally understanding the expectation of the position. And so I think if people know what they're stepping into, you might actually get a little more support. Now, we are getting younger people joining our congregation. I've had 9 new memberships in the past year, and 5 of them were families with small children. They're not jumping, they're also parents with small children working full time, and usually both parents working. So we've started doing ask of one small thing. If you're willing to lead it, we'll get you the volunteers. So I'm starting to see a turnaround, but I really encourage a manual, so to speak, that you have each person do, so that the next person who steps into your role kind of has an idea of what's expected of them. What are you responsible for? Because I, in the beginning, took a lot on, but then I got people would come to me and say, we really need to do this. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. You're in charge. And it took me a while to do that. And it's working for us. So I have 1 year left, and then I get to be past president, and hopefully not president again. But so I strongly encourage you to get your board members to really organize how they do their positions and what's expected. And maybe then when you ask the younger generation, not only do we want your new ideas, but this is kind of what the role is, kind of a job description. So that's just my 2 cents.
Before calling on Bob Fishman and then Jack Schmerling, just piggybacking on what Ann said, is one of the things that we encourage when we work with congregations is to identify the absolute essential tasks of your position. Because you find that, especially when you're president, you're doing a lot of stuff that's really not essential. And the people who are out in the wings are looking at you saying, oh my God, this is overwhelming. I remember with Columbus, Mississippi, he had 5 pages of tasks that he did. We got it whittled down to less than 1 page. Makes it easier for people psychologically to say, maybe I'll take on the job. So in addition to having your little manual or handbook, the essential tasks, and then you'll find that it's maybe easier, not impossible, but easier. Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Fishman. I'm the president of Temple Bethel on Long Island. We're located just outside the city limits. I've been the president for 8 years, and there's no sign of a successor. My main point that I want to convey first is how impressed I am by the dedication and resilience of those who presented this evening, and the audiovisual work and production was incredible as well. I am a member of the small synagogue group coming from a different direction. We're probably the giant of this community here, with 110 or so households, maybe a little more, but many of those households have one or two people over 90, certainly over 85. So we share with you the commonality of a very aging community. But we were, as opposed to some of you speaking about having been 20 households and still 20, we were at one time 1,500 households. Today, we, as I said, have many fewer, replaced by in the community, and we're a very dense community just outside the city. There's no less traffic, no fewer people than you would find in any of the 5 boroughs. But you would also find about 60 Orthodox synagogues in the community as our demographics have changed. And so we too will have a limited shelf life and share many of the same challenges in terms of participation. We have a core group that's there for all services and programs, etc., and a secondary group that attends a lot of things, and a huge number of people that are there 3 days a year. By the way, we're a conservative egalitarian congregation. We have a lot of 3-day-a-year members who fortunately have very deep pockets, and so we have a very generous membership. But nevertheless, we don't have our own printing press, and therefore there are some limits in terms of how long we can survive. Even having sold our building, we have 15 years of free rent within the building and our sanctuaries and our offices. But even so, there's an end somewhere down the road. And so I relate very well to what you've described, and I really admire the resilience and commitment that our speakers, and I'm sure all of the others who are on this call, have demonstrated over the years. So hats off to you folks.
Jack.
Thank you. I'm a member of Congregation Knesset Israel in Annapolis, Maryland. I've been on the board for 41 continuous years, and I guess that gives me the longevity. And our synagogue is small. It's about 90 members. We're older, but we don't have money issues. We don't have security issues. But what I wanted to do is make a suggestion about the cemetery. What we did, our cemetery was started in 1936, and it needed renovation. So what we did was we found the families of people who were buried in the cemetery, but had moved out of the area. And we started a committee, and we solicited money to revitalize the cemetery. And about 10, 20 years ago, we set it up as a separate corporation, but it's controlled by the synagogue. The synagogue appoints the 3 people who run it. They have their own separate checking account that goes through the synagogue. Whenever they sell a plot or whenever they get any money in, it goes to their account. Until 2 years ago, if they ever got above a certain amount, we would get the excess. In any event, we sent out letters to current members, past members, families from people who had died, and we received somewhere around $300,000 for the cemetery. The money was put into the cemetery, and we used it to fix up the cemetery. It's a gorgeous cemetery. If you're ever in Annapolis, at the Annapolis Mall, which is 1.1 million square feet, we look down on it. So it's I have a great view of some great stores. So, but what we did was we were able to just go out and try to get people to help with it. The amount money is strictly accounted for, and we had one person in the community who led the charge on it and made an initial large donation. And then it's just amazing. People who haven't been to our cemetery, people who haven't been around for 50 years sent in money.
Thank you. I want to ask our 4 presenters, do you have any comments as a reaction or response to what people have been thus far saying?
Well, I love Naomi's comment that the consistency through all of us, excuse me, is that Jewish life is precious, and we're all working to try and keep it to whatever level we can in the community. Thank you for saying that. And for those who are struggling with cemeteries, No has been fabulous, but that is our Achilles heel. We cannot finish our legacy plan because we're continuing to build up the finances and we can't find anyone to take it over. And we want to be responsible and not just leave it for the city. So if you're dealing with that too, I feel for you.
Thank you. Paul?
I actually, after my first term as president, I did draw up a list of presidential responsibilities, but I really appreciated the suggestion that that list contained be pared down to essential things. And that's inspired me to go over that list that I drew up, oh, maybe 30 years ago and refine it so that if we're fortunate enough to get a younger person to step into the role, they'll have a practical plan of how to proceed.
I agree with what Paul and the other folks have said about, and Noah, you said this to us after we made our vote to close the synagogue, before we had folks step forward to lead it, that it is helpful to know exactly what needs to be done to keep things going, and to find a way to distribute those responsibilities among the few people that you have, because it really, I think, would make a big difference, and would have made a bigger difference for us. I think those of us who were burnt out wouldn't have been so burnt out if we had had an organized and written down, well-documented list of responsibilities that we could divvy up. Because if you don't write it down and if you don't share it, then nobody can come in and help. And I heard folks say, how you had that rough first year when you became president, because there wasn't that handoff or that continuity that would make it a lot more doable and less of a burden on just a few people.
Both. Oh, Jose.
Yeah, so I'd like to say that what Terry said resonated with me too, about the having the vote to close and everybody stepping in after that. We've been talking about closing for the last 2 or 3 years, and every year we've been able to eke out another one. And we really thought that this was the last year, that we weren't going to be able to go any further. So we had a congregational meeting where we brought it up again, and so many people showed up. We heard from so many members what the congregation meant to them, and it really injected some energy into our board. It gave us all a sense that we're doing something that's worth it, and it really helped to kind of push us. I think we might get a few more years out of it because of that meeting. So if things are looking bleak, let your membership know, and they might step up.
There's something to be said about a come to Jesus moment, because it forces everybody to realize exactly what Jose, Terry, everybody's been saying, which is, what do we think about the synagogue? And most of the members are saying we love it. It's a family, and we recognize we've been allowing leadership to basically carry the burden. And when you have that moment, it says it's not just 3 or 4 people, it's everybody. And it's wonderful that it's turned around. But there's another side too, which is met with a couple of congregations to say, you, the leaders, the 5 of you, 6 of you, 4 of you, whatever it is, you're doing everything. You love the synagogue. And as far as you're concerned, you're going to do it as long as you're going to do it because you're passionate about it. And they said, we would love for people to step up to the plate to take over, but we recognize, and I think, Paul, that's your model, which is a rotating system, because A, we're able to do it, B, we love the synagogue, C, we're capable of making these decisions, and we'll do it as long as possible. And that I said, though, I think you need to, that's great from the synagogue perspective. But from your perspective, and this is Terry's point that she made at the very beginning, it's entirely appropriate to ask yourself, what's in it for me? And if what's in it for me is, to Eileen's point, I'm going to be president for 20 years, that's good. If it's somebody else says, I can't do it, then that's fine as well. Nobody on this Zoom should feel bad about a decision because, or obligated because of your position. You're doing it because you love it. And then when you get to the point where you say, I can and I won't, that's fine. In the synagogue, we'll have to step up to the plate as Terry's synagogue and Jose's synagogue, or that'll be the trigger element for closing. But all of you are doing God's work. And I think that that's very, very important. We're here to obviously help you figure out how to minimize burnout, getting more people involved and so on. But at the end of the day, you're going to decide what is important for you and where that synagogue fits into your life. I thought I saw somebody's hand going up.
Just a quick question, pragmatic question. The discussion earlier during one of the presentations was about term limits.
Where
for
are you
presidents.
from, Rob? Where are you from?
Beth Shalom Temple, Fredericksburg, Virginia, about 110 membership units. How long were the term limits? 1 year, 2 years, 18 years, life sentence, parole? What's the situation there?
I can speak for a United Hebrew Chaplain. You can serve 2 consecutive terms just once. And after that, you're limited to 1 term at a time. So you cannot succeed yourself more than once.
Thank you.
But Rob, sometimes if you want to keep the synagogue going, you have to violate the bylaws. Otherwise, nobody's going to step up. Joanna, did you want to say something?
This was very helpful to me because I think I'm going to step up and become president at one point in time. So I want to thank everybody. I got a lot of really good ideas.
And you have a big support group now. You can call on any one of them for advice, or at least to, a shoulder to cry on.
Thank you. A shoulder to cry on. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Any final comments?
We
will send the recording out with the Q&A, not just to you, but to the entire President's Forum. And you'll be getting information about the follow-up, the next one, which is, I think, Ken Stein in Israel, and then security. And again, thank you to Terry and to Eileen and to Paul and to Jose and to Jackie. And thank you to Andy, and thank you to all of you. Have a great, great evening. Take care.
And Noah, thank you, because I think all of us have probably worked with you in some capacity. And so we've all grown to appreciate everything that you've helped us with, because it's made a difference. And we all probably have the attitude, we're not closing on my watch.
Great.
Thank you.
Noah, you've been a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care, everyone.